Okay, happy. Everyone can see that? Joe, I can see you, so you can tell me. Can you see that okay? Yeah, good stuff. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Uh, another in a series of webinars that we've been delivering at Pebblebeach over the last year. I hope they've been useful to you. This one's a bit of a hybrid, and it's a slight recap on a conversation we had in September. And in September, we kind of looked ahead and thought, what would 2021 fundraising be looking like? And we're kind of reviewing that, but that conversation in September was specifically aimed and focused on hospice fundraising for our hospice clients. This talk is very much about just general charity, and it's kind of top level, it's top line. There's not a lot of nitty gritty detail in here, although there's a little bit of work that we're going to put in front of you. But mostly it's just some thoughts about what the future of fundraising is going to be. So just to go through the housekeeping to start with. 30 minutes-ish talk. Those that know me will be betting against that, I know. If you've got questions as we go, then please pop them in the Zoom chat, and Ellie and Amy are going to jump on and let me know if there's anything that's not clear and needs explaining again, etc. Then please let me know. But if you want to talk to us in detail about yourself, about your own charity, or any specific questions or anything that takes a bit of a longer answer, then just drop either to us directly, or if you can't remember our email, it's just hello@pebblebeachfundraising.com, and we'll come straight back to you. Okay. The legal bit, we are recording this webinar as we always do. We will edit this down and pop this on our website. We'll also pop it on a YouTube channel as well. Any questions about how we're using data, then please let us know. And obviously all the information is there about privacy policy and how we use that information as well. So it's going to be thoughts on 2021-22 fundraising and the challenges and opportunities that present themselves in that year. This is just my opinions based on my experience, what I've seen, what we've seen over the last year. This is not gospel. This is not a panacea. This is not saying every charity has to follow this exact model. This is me giving some challenges and some starting points. You've each got your own situations, and it's about adaptability and flexibility. But there's some central points I think I want to make. And as I said, this is a follow-up to a talk I gave in September where we focus on hospice fundraising. And in September, when we gave that talk, the R rate was really low. There was hardly any cases. Everyone was feeling really positive. I just come back from a really pleasant week in Cornwall and was feeling quite good about everything. And our view at that point was that, oh, March, basically, we'll be fine. By March, everything's fine. We're all back to normal by March. What would that look like? We've obviously had to change our views on that. And so it's looking at the future and thinking, right, what can we do? And how does our work is impacted over the next year? So I said in September, this is what we couldn't do. And we talked about the need to be proactive, and we talked about the need to get out there and not wait for this to be all over. Gleefully and joyfully, most of the charities that we've spoken to over the last 6 months or so haven't done this. They've got out there, they've been proactive, but there have been a number of worrying conversations that I've had with charities that have where I've spoken to fundraisers who basically said, everyone's been furloughed apart from me. I'm just sitting here and all I've got is the capacity to say thank you to those people that send a check in every now and again, and I've got nothing else. And I am concerned that, and this is one of the reasons why we specifically said this session is for fundraisers, but also for chief execs and for trustees as well, for those of you who hold those positions. There really is not a big red button with fundraising written on it that you can just push on the 22nd of June. Yeah, when everything supposedly gets back to normal, and that it all starts up again and everyone's fine and we're all back doing what we're doing and all the events start working and all the money that we used to seeing starts coming in again. It will not be like that. The world is going to be different. It's going to be much more difficult. And those charities that survive and that get back to a solid fundraising performance are going to be the ones that have done the work in the meantime. And for those charities that haven't been able to do the work since September because they've not had the resource or the time, this has to be done. And that's what we're talking about here. How do we plan and prepare and get ready to make the most of the opportunities that this year will give us? Okay. And the challenge, we said, was, at the time, we thought we knew what the restrictions were looking like. Okay, we think we've got a much clearer idea now. So we've got a plan for movement restrictions ending. We don't know whether people want to gather together again. I've seen on some of the fundraising chats, particularly on Facebook, there's been a lot of questions, quite rightly, from fundraisers saying, well, what about this? What about events? Are we going to do a ball? Are people going to do a ball? Are we doing a ball in October? A gathering again? What do people want to do? We don't know. We don't know whether, even though we can, are people going to be comfortable gathering together in large numbers? How does that affect our activity? How does that affect our fundraising? Will some of us still be working from home? Pebblebeach, we've been working from home. I'm in the office, but I'm on my own here. We've been working from home for almost exactly a year now. In fact, bizarrely, I've got my calendar still on my desk from the last day I was in the office in 2020. So I'm kind of leaving it there as a kind of 28 days later thing, you know. So when we finally get started again, it might be a full year since then. But the bottom point there are going to be fewer jobs. We know that. Fewer jobs. That means less money. Does that mean less money for charities? That means we have to work harder for it. Again, we have to be prepared. We have to assume, hope for the best, plan for the worst. We have to assume that we need to work harder for our income. Good. But we do still believe, and charities are needed in the UK now more than ever. I mean, if you look at all the charity interactions, look at the NHS charity fundraising, look at all the food banks and the support for the outpouring that we've seen for hospice charities, campaigns that we've delivered for our hospice charities, you know, nurses working on the front line, delivering 4, 5, 6 times expected income, because the public want to be part of this. They want to contribute. And the community does have the ability to support us. We've spent a year not spending any money. Now, a lot of that is going to be spent on holidays and alcohol. We get that, but we hope that there is some money left to support the causes and the charities that adhere to them as well. And they have shown that they will support charity when they're moved to do so. And Captain Sir Tom, you know, loving to bits, he raised 39 million, including gift aid. No one's got the faintest idea what that money's going to do. What does that money achieve? I mean, we work with some hospital charities ourselves. There's still no plan. They're still working out what they're going to do with this money. There was no need. There was no charitable proposition there, other than there was a story and there was a guy that epitomized the feeling of the country at that moment. And because there was emotion involved, because people felt they wanted to be involved, he became the beacon and people responded. And that's fantastic. But for us, our individual charities, we can't just sit there and wait for people to go, oh, charity, I'll give you some money. We've got to go and get it. We've got to go and communicate and talk to people. Okay. So we need a plan. And this is what I said in September. We've got to have a solid plan, and we've got to give our planning, we've got to give the thinking bit of our job the time it needs, because if we don't think properly, we're not going to do properly. And there will be things that we can definitely do. And there will be things that we might be able to do depending on how people's reactions and what happens in the country and the R number, etc. So we're going to need some flexibility, and we're going to have to review, and we might need multiple plans and multiple options. So there might need to be a contingency for the ball in October, but we might need to have a contingency plan to put it in March instead. You know? So again, it's about those thinking ahead and planning for different options. But don't worry, because there is a plan, and Boris has told us that we've got lockdown 3 ending in March. The vaccine program is going great, brilliant. All adults vaccinated by the end of July. And so a roadmap, a 4-stage roadmap we now have back to normality, okay? So that's the official plan. There was a different version of it, which I think is much more us. I'm sure you've seen a version of this going around on social media. I think this kind of 4-step plan is much more likely. Yeah, I think this is something we can all get behind, isn't it, really? Yeah, this is where we're going to go. But following on from Boris giving us his 4-part plan for moving fundraising forward. So what we've given you is, I want to talk through a 4-stage plan for fundraising in 2021, okay? And here's how we think we want to move forward with our activity next year. So stage 1, Stage 1, and this is hugely important, is to tell our stories. We're charity fundraisers. We are storytellers. The reasons Captain Sir Tom raised all that money is because there was a story there. There was a human story, and that generated emotion, and that emotion generated response. And so if we're going to generate a response from our supporter audiences, we have to tell stories. And I know Amy's, my colleague Amy, you can see there, has said a number of times, there are quite a few charities that just aren't sharing their stories because staff have been furloughed and we haven't got the resource, etc. We're literally just not communicating. There are some charities that haven't been out there and spoken to their audience in almost a year. It's absolutely terrifying, because where is the opportunity? Again, you can't just wait and press a big red button and everyone starts up again. Those supporters, people that are passionate about our cause, we have to continue to engage with them. Otherwise, they're not going to continue to support us. They're going to go elsewhere and find other causes where the passion still remains. So we have to tell stories. And for us, that stories of beneficiaries. We've got to reach out and tell the stories of the people or the organizations that we help. Show the benefits, show the interaction, show the delivery of the work. And we also have to talk about staff as well, particularly for a lot of our work in the hospice movement. Talking about the staff experience is being incredibly important. The journey that staff have been on, that nursing staff particularly have been on, has been absolutely incredible, and it's really powerful, and we have to talk about it, and we have to share that experience, partly to engage the audience and to keep them interested in the cause we have, but also partly to thank them, because a lot of that work that's been delivered over the last year has been because people have come on board and have supported. So we need to tell them stories, we need to tell them what's happened, explain the work that our charity is doing, and what outcomes did we deliver. And that's a combination. It's not just pure numbers. It's not just we helped 24% more people, or we opened another shop, or whatever it might be. It's about what human experiences we deliver. And again, it's all about the story. It's all about the outcomes. And I'd want to talk about successes and failures. Successes are brilliant because this is what we were able to do thanks to the support we received from our community. And when I say community, that can be a regional community or community of people that are interested in our cause. So let's share those successes. Let's share the good bits. This is brilliant. But also, and some charities I think really struggle with this, we need to talk about the failures as well. Where didn't it go well? Who were we not able to reach? Because those failures are the examples of what may continue and what is likely to carry on happening unless we change our charity's ability to deliver more in the future. And that is the fundraising proposition. So we've got to talk about both. We've got to show both experiences. Someone's on join. If you be kind of put yourself on mute, because I'm getting horrible feedback. Thank you. Done? Yo, thank you very much. And the last point there is that this is the question that I always ask. So whenever we're speaking to a charity, whenever we're speaking to people that actually deliver the service, it's a hugely important question. What were the experiences? What were the moments that made you emotional? So if we're talking to a nurse working at a hospice, what were the examples of care? What were the moments? Who were the patients that you remember that really made you go, whoof? Because if we can grab those stories, if we can grab the ones that make the people who do this every day emotional, then those are going to be the instances that move the audience as well. But we've got to go and grab them. We've got to ask those questions. And sometimes that's tough and everyone's really, really busy, but we've got to go and get that information because that's what moves people to support. So storytelling, grabbing that information, sharing that information, the first stage. Right, stage 2, where are we going? And this is hugely important. For those of you who've heard me speak before, you've heard me use this phrase, that the new horizon. Where are we going? What are we aiming for? How will the new thing that we hope to end up as differ? How does that differ from the old? So a lot of it, home working, for example, a lot of people have been home working. There's been a real change in understanding about how people, do we have to come into the office? Do we have to do that? Can we work digitally? Can we work from home? Is productivity changed? How does that affect the way that we're able to deliver the services that we do? Also digital working as well. So the new, for most of the charities that we are supporting at the moment, the thing that they are aiming for now, this new horizon that is the future of their charity's delivery, is not the same as the place they left behind before the pandemic. And that's a really positive message. It's about learning. That's about taking on new experience. It's about reaching out and doing more and being more productive. And that's an incredibly positive thing to put out into our community and to inspire people to support us. But we've got to explain what we mean by that. So we talk about what we want to do, how we want to change the service, how we want to help more people in more ways, more exciting ways, better ways, more efficiency, better value for money. We also want to tell them how long it's going to take to get there. So this new future that we're describing to you, what's the journey? And fundraising is always about a journey, isn't it? It's always about we're here and we're going there, and it's going to cost a certain amount of money, it's going to take a certain amount of time, and we need you to come with us because we need you to be part of this, yeah? So we've got to explain that journey to them. And that final point, I think, is really, really crucial. This is not revenue fundraising. We are not in a yearly circular cycle at the moment. We are in a one-off situation, and this is a linear journey. We are where we are now, and we're getting to an end of journey point. We're working towards our horizon. That is not a straight line, probably quite wiggly for most charities, but you know what? It's not a circle. We're not just going round and round and round anymore. We hope there comes a point in the future where we do get to the new level of our charity. We go, great, this is how we now operate, and let's now continue and do the same things that we do each year, and that's fine. But at the moment, it's a one-off journey, and we need to be talking about that. And that's exactly what happens in a capital appeal. If any of you ever been involved in a capital appeal, it's a one-off thing. It's an immediate, urgent challenge. It has a time scale. It has a cost. There's a reason why you're doing it. There's a benefit to doing it. And this is how we want you to get involved. And so this is what we're talking about now. I strongly, strongly believe that the charities that will be successful are the ones that are able to reach out to the community and say, this is where we're going. This is the journey we're on. This is the vision we have. This is how we need you to be part of that, okay? And it's your case for support, whether that's a written document, whether it's something on the website, whatever, but it is a documented vision and journey that you can place in front of different audiences. So that's stage 2, defining what we're doing, defining the journey we're on. Okay, and here's the techie stuff. So Joe, because I can see you, I'm looking at you and going, this is the bit you're going to love, all the data side of it, obviously. So I'm suggesting that you split your audience. This is just an example. You don't have to follow this. Change the model, different groups, different percentages, make it right for you. But this is based on our knowledge and experience of the databases and the charities that we've supported at Pebblebeach over the last 15, 16 years now. So we're suggesting that you think about your audience in different strata. And your first strata would be your major supporters. Choose another name if you prefer. For the databases that we work with, we would usually expect to find that 1% of the audience, and I'm focusing here on individuals, but the logic also does apply to companies, and it applies to event participants, community fundraisers as well. We would generally expect the top 1% of the audience to deliver 20% of the value. 20% of the income comes from 1% of the people at the top, okay? The second group, high net worth, is our shorthand for these. Again, typically about 4% of an audience, 4% of a database, but again, responsible for 20% of giving. The third group, core supporters, 15% of the audience, and they account for 40% of the giving. So you can see as a percentage ratio, the most important people are the majors, the next to the high net worth, the next to the cores. And between those, for those of you who are keen-eyed, you'll notice that that adds up to 20% of the audience, and it adds up to 80% of the giving. So there's your 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle that many of you will have heard me bang on about before, in operation. And I guarantee you, every single charity database that we ever see, the 80-20 rule is in operation. We will see 80% of income coming from about 20% of the audience involved. It's never more than 1 or 2% out. And so the challenge is you've got 80% of your income coming from just 20%, but that's still hugely biased towards the people at the top in those groups there. You then have the warm supporters, and this is where most charities have the rump of their supporters, people who give, regular donors giving occasionally, and that's lovely. They're 40% of the audience, but they only actually contribute 50% of the value of the financial giving. And then we have the lapsed, which is those who used to support. Quite often for a charity's lapsed means hasn't given in 3 years, but it differs from charity to charity. And a lapse is 40% of the audience, but only 4% of the giving. And then there's a little bit of cold coming in, 1% of giving in fundraising terms. So the challenge there is that the warm and the lapsed combined is 80% of the people on the database, but it's only representing 19% of the value, 19% of the giving. And the opposite is true. The 20% of the audience up here is responsible for 80% of the giving. But what is so common and what must not happen from here is that, particularly where resources are stretched, particularly where fundraisers are under pressure and don't have the time, is you get the focus on this 80%, on the number 4 and 5. Because that's where most people are, that's where the attention gets put. We will create a fundraising plan and a communication plan to reach out to this 80%, and that usually involves a couple of newsletters a year and a raffle and a mailing, etc., etc. And so we're all familiar with those plans, but they're designed and considered around this audience here. And so many times when we're working with charities, there's a plan for these guys, but there isn't really a plan for these guys up here. And yet the value, this is where the value sits. And forgive me for those of you who've heard me speak before, you know what I'm going to say. If your chief exec or trustees come to you and say, I need an extra 20% net income this year to spend on our services, then your challenge is you can either try and double everything that you get from this 80% of your audience, or you can simply add 1/4 to the value you achieve from this group of your audience, and that's the same amount of money. The ease, the focus for us fundraisers, particularly for smaller charities, particularly for those where they don't have the resource, particularly for those where there's a huge challenge of bringing fundraising back, this is where the opportunity lies. It's at the top of this pyramid. But in order to do that, in order to be able to target those people intelligently, you have to know who they are in the first place. So that audience interrogation and understanding has to come first, because once we know our audience, then we can start thinking about how we talk to them. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. So the stage 4, and don't worry, this isn't the only slide on stage 4. Stage 4 is go and engage with your supporters. Okay, but this is the crucial thing. If there's one slide, one message that you take away from this talk this morning, is this point here: match your spend and your time to the percentage income that you expect from that audience. So if all you can do, if all you have the time to do is to make sure that you have spent your time working on these top 3 audiences, that's good enough. These guys can get a couple of newsletters, whatever it might be, that's fine. But make sure that your time and your resource and your effort has been spent in this area here, because that's where the income is going to come from, particularly in this linear capital revenue appeal hybrid situation that we find ourselves in. It's at the top of the tree. Those most likely to give us most money, that's where the value is going to come. That's where your time should be spent. Okay, so match your spend and your time to the percentage income. So what does that look like? Okay, so here's just a really incredibly basic and simple, overly simplistic approach to this, how you might spend that. So we have our major audience. That's 1% of our audience, but it's representing 20% of our income. Therefore, it should represent 20% of our time resource. So 1 day a week, if we're a fundraiser focusing on individuals, 1 whole day a week should be spent on just thinking about our top 1%. And that's really, really challenging a statement to make for many fundraisers, I know, because how can you spend 1/5 of your week just focusing on 1% of the audience? Well, because that's where the money is. And if you want to generate the most income, that's where you've got to be spending your time. So how might they do that? And I've put in terms of voices, who communicates with these audiences? How do we reach out to these audiences? Well, if we're talking to someone who's a major supporter, I would expect that the peer-to-peer communication here is going to be from patrons, it's going to be from chair trustees, certainly going to be from the chief exec. Yeah, we're not going to have a fundraiser communicating directly with individuals. We're going to give them a voice that is equal to their status within our organization. And the offer, I think, is different as well for people at the top of the street. If we accept that we're on this linear journey, we have this case of support, we have this bright shining horizon that we're aiming towards, well, what's the offer there? And for me, at the top of the tree here, where we're having hopefully individual conversations, it is not give us your money. That is not the proposition. The proposition is help us to shape our future. And we have this conversation so often in capital appeals when we're helping charities to build things or renew things or refurbish things, etc. And far too much of the time, charities will do the research, and we'll do the prospecting of gold, and we'll understand who our best supporters are, etc. And we'll approach them and we'll say, we're doing this. It costs this much. Please give us some money. And you get some response, you get some lukewarm response, or you get no response at all. The conversation that should be happening with those key audiences is, here's where we want to get to. Can you help us to achieve that journey? What do you think? What should we try and aim for? How ambitious should we be? Can we get the benefit of your knowledge and experience in helping our charity to define the horizon that we're aiming for and help us to get there? Because if people are engaged as part of the problem and helping you to be part of the solution, they're much then more likely to want to contribute to make it a reality. So the capital appeal equivalent is, on a number of occasions, we've had 2 cases for support. This one is ambitious, but reasonably doable. We think this is achievable on a fundraising context. This one is much more ambitious. We can only achieve this if people like you support us. So we're coming to you to ask us, what do you think? Where do you think we should go? And that engagement with the audience before we ask for money. My colleague Andrew has a lovely phrase: if you ask for money, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money. It is true. At the people at the top of that pyramid, we have to be talking to them as partners, as stakeholders in the project, in the charity, and not just people that we turn to and expect them to write a check when we say, we've made all the decisions, we just need you to fund it. Okay, so at the top of the pyramid, those top conversations, we have to engage with the concept, with the horizon setting. And how might we do that? Well, media, in person. When we are allowed to, we go and speak to them in person. Individual one-to-one Zoom calls. We've seen quite a few of those set up. I've enabled a few of those myself over the last 6 months. Certainly phone, absolutely, but also personal mail as well. There is still nothing quite as powerful as writing to somebody, particularly when an individual literally writes to an individual with a pen, preferably a fountain pen. You know, I'm old school. And handwrites the envelope and puts a live stamp on it and says, hello, Fred, I'm writing to you because I really need to ask you something. Could you please consider this? And then we talk to them about that. And that's how we grab that attention. But it's all about that individual, personal, one-to-one communication. So that's the 20% at the top there. The high net worths also worth another 20% of our time. So there's 2 days of our week gone, yeah, with major and high net worth. These guys, 4% of the database. Again, who are the voices? Same thing: patron, chair, CEO, maybe fundraising director. Again, if that's appropriate, if there's an account management relationship there, if we need someone to steward someone, make sure they're receiving the information they want, making sure they're getting the invitations to things we want them to come to, fair enough. What's the proposition? What's the offer? Again, help us to shape our future. There are more of them. We need to use more wider marketing techniques, but we can still have that engagement with, what do you think? Where should we be going? Help us to define our horizon and bring them on the journey with us. And then how do we communicate? Well, we do VIP events. We might have gatherings when we're allowed to. We might invite people into presentations. Highly effective over the last few months is small scale Zoom meetings, things like this. There's 50 odd people on this webinar at the moment, but really successful is the chief exec and perhaps one of the trustees just meeting on Zoom with 3 or 4 key individuals in order to share some experiences about what's been going on, talk about the challenges and opportunities of the future, gain the advice and support of those individuals attending to help us shape the future. Really, really powerful opportunity. But again, we've got to get out there and communicate. Then there's the next, then there's the core, your 40%, and there's 4/5 of your week done, yeah? So your core is the 15% of supporters who are giving you 40% of the income. So the voice is there. Again, chief exec, maybe the fundraising director, staff, I'm talking about service delivery staff when I say staff, and I've put beneficiaries later on. There's always beneficiaries. The stories that we talked about right at the beginning, they always have to be part of that conversation every single time, because it doesn't matter whether you're asking someone for £1 or £1 million. The reason why they will choose to support you is because they feel a passion for your cause and for your charity, and they trust you with the money to do the right thing with it. Yeah, so there's head and heart going on there, but it doesn't matter how much we're talking about. The value judgment is simply based on how many noughts are in their bank account. The reason they choose to support you is exactly the same. So then we go to the offer. For that 15%, we're starting to get into some big numbers here. We logically and logistically cannot ask for everyone's opinion on where we think we should be going. So here we do start moving into, we have reached out to our community, we have established a vision, this is where we're going, can you be part of our journey? But again, not we're doing this, give us some money. Offer that journey together. We want to be on a journey together. You care about this, we care about this, we have a horizon, be part of that journey. Here's how you can help all of us together to reach that new vision. And how do we do that? Well, we might have larger events. We then introduce personalized direct marketing. So if we're producing a campaign for a charity, we'll often, almost all the time, be producing a high value version of a mailing appeal where we're using very highly targeted and personalized communication techniques. We're using a lot of handwork. We're hand stuffing in envelopes, putting stamps on, etc., because we want to give that individual a relationship that feels like a higher value major donor relationship. But we're using mass marketing techniques because we just don't have the time to do it on a one-to-one individual basis. And then we move into the warm. So there's the warm. Voices, staff, and beneficiaries. Again, be part of this journey. For lapsed, for lapsed, it's we need you back. And one of the opportunities, one of the things that we've really noticed in this last year is we do not subscribe at all to the 3-year or any year cutoff rule. We do not agree that we only ask people to support us who've given within a certain period of time. And the reason why, and again, Joe, sorry, I'm looking at you because I can see you. Every single database we ever see, we will be able to point out the individual who has given a few quid, bless them, but they gave that just before the 3-year cutoff. And they're going to get the next thing we're sending out to them, even though there's almost no likelihood of them giving us any money at all. They're going to get into the next mailing file. And then we're also able to find the individual who, over a 15, 20-year period, has given thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to the charity, is passionate about the cause, but doesn't happen to have given for just over 3 years now, and they're not going to get in. They're very likely to support. We definitely want to speak to them. They've definitely paid their way in the charity, but we don't talk to them because this guillotine comes down. So we don't subscribe to that. And what we found over the last year is that if there's ever an opportunity to reach out to those supporters who used to be brilliant supporters for us and to get them back in, to get them re-giving, this is the time to do this. The response to this situation, the journey that we're putting in front of them to this new shining horizon is the opportunity to get them back on board. And as long as we've reached out to them and we've asked them and we've opened some doors and we've given them an opportunity to give again, if they choose to give, fantastic. If they don't, brilliant. Then we can stop talking to them, because if they're not going to come back in for this fundraising proposition, then we're not going to get them back. But there's an opportunity where the value in their giving history is there to go out and try and get them back. There's a reason why we need them back, because we've got to get through this emergency and we've got this shining horizon to get to. Okay. And then cold, and you see I said down here, limited direct marketing, online and social. So online and social becomes really important here. I'm not suggesting you use, Facebook communications for majors up here, but absolutely the Facebook, Insta, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever you're using, all this is really important down this end, because it is mass market, is easy to produce, it enables you to reach a much wider audience, although you have to understand obviously that the chances of engagement, interaction are much, 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 much lower when you get further down the scale. Okay, so there's a really simplistic, deliberately oversimplistic little matrix of how you might spend your time and how you might apportion your time to the audience once you build that case of support. Okay, so individual giving in 2021. Just 5 more minutes now. I'm just going to skip through and we can answer some questions afterwards if you wish. So first point is we're saying cash appeals until the summer. And the reason I'm putting that up front is we've had a number of charities come to us and said, either we're thinking about regular giving or, worryingly, we've been told to go and get regular giving. And the challenge is that I think that one-off donations are still absolutely the strongest ask while the need is one-off. We have to match the environment and the ask. So where we have a linear trajectory, a one-off need, we should be asking for one-off solutions. And that is donations where appropriate. It would also be raffles. If you traditionally do raffles and you haven't done a raffle so far, do a raffle. They are working incredibly well. People really get it and they understand it. Particularly one of the raffles that we recently delivered, one last year, when we thought we were in this situation last year, the Better Tomorrows raffle, and the top prize was a really modest cash sum compared to raffles they'd previously delivered. But the proposition was, imagine the family reunion you could pay for with this. It more than doubled best ever previous raffle income, because again, it's part of that solution. It's part of the narrative, part of the zeitgeist. It feels right. Yeah. So what are we asking people to do? So cash appeals, cash asks until the summer. From the summer, and I'm saying from the summer simply because it's going to take time to actually get this work done and deliver it. Gifts and wills. There has never been a stronger argument or justification or example of the benefits of gifts and wills to charities than right now. Many charities are still here purely because of legacy income given in previous years. They have been able to get through this crisis because they've had the buffer of reserves, and those reserves have largely been generated by legacy income over the last 20 years. And so because of that foresight, because of that thoughtful gift from individuals many, many years ago, this charity is still here fighting the fight and is still able to now think about the future and the journey into the future ahead. Baby boom generation can be the engine of the escape from COVID, and for me for the next 30 years as well. Okay. So my folks, my parents were very young when they had, very, very young when they had me. My mom's 74, my dad's 73. Absolutely right in the middle of the baby generation, born 46, 47. They're planning their estates. They've already written their will. They might make a couple of alterations, etc. That is the generation. That is the generation that has the free cash at the moment, that has the money. And they are going to be the engine of giving. So if we're looking at major donors, high net worth individuals, and those top three groups, a lot of that money sits in that kind of age group. And so we're talking to people who are thinking about suddenly going out and having holidays, but they haven't had holidays for last year. They haven't had the 4 mini cruises that we'd normally expect. So therefore, maybe there's a bit of cash in the bank and they want to be able to do something positive with it. Brilliant. Let us help you do that. But they're thinking about planning for their future. They're thinking about planning for their children and their grandchildren. We have to have that proactive conversation with them about this is the incredible effect and change you can deliver through your giving in will. And we have to start talking about that really, really soon while we've got this one-off opportunity. But it doesn't stop then. Giving in wills, conversation about legacy giving in wills should not be a one-off thing. As a fundraiser, we cannot simply produce a brochure, send a mailing out, pop something on the website, have an article in the newsletter or whatever it might be and go, oh, brilliant, gifts in wills, tick. Gifts in wills has to be something that we talk about constantly, all the time, giving examples, showing the benefit, talking about people who've left gifts, what the money has achieved, how beneficiaries have been supported, the voices of those people who've made a decision to leave gifts in wills in the future. Crucially, not just relying on traditional media, making sure that we're using social media to talk about that as well. Ellie shared a report with me the other day saying 20% of new gifts in wills are being left by millennials at the moment. Young people are thinking about giving in wills. How are we reaching them? How are we communicating with them? So that for me, that's a massive project that we have to grasp. It's not something we can leave until 2022 because I think the horse has bolted by then. We've got to talk to people now while they're thinking about mortality and we're thinking about death, aren't we? We're much more understanding about people die and the effects of that. So while we're comfortable having that conversation, let's talk to them about giving in wills. Okay, right, stop banging on about giving in wills. Christmas, winter. For those charities, for those of you where Christmas or winter is a thing, then this is the first back to normal. So for example, a lot of the children's hospices that we support, it was a really, really weird and strange and challenging Christmas. It's going to be double Christmas next year. So there's going to be a really, really massive effort. And this is an opportunity for the audience to really get engaged and really get involved. And that celebration, Christmas is going to be enormous in 2021 because we're going to be able to have our families around again and all go mad and all get drunk again. So that's brilliant. Let's have that opportunity for people to be part of the charity delivering a brilliant experience to beneficiaries as well. But we've got to start thinking about that now. And then spring 2022, that's what I'm talking about, committed giving. Regular gifts, committed giving, brilliant, but let's wait until we're at the point at which we can say, okay, we think we're through this now. We think the immediate crisis is averted. We can now start thinking more long term. We can now start thinking multi-year. This is when we need to talk about regular giving, yeah, because for me, it fits the narrative, it fits the cycle of our lives much more strongly than talk about regular gifts now, okay? Corporate fundraising, just very, very briefly, we mentioned this in September. It's got to be one consistent message. The one thing I would say is to all charities, you can't have different conversations, different needs, different propositions for every single type of audience. The opportunity you have is that this case of support that we've talked about, this can work here too. This shining horizon, this journey that we're on, it's your narrative, it's your story. And all you need to do is to share that story in a slightly different way that's appropriate for the different audiences. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time there is a new audience in front of you. So for corporates, we'll talk about the case support. We'll share the journey with them as well. We want to offer engagement and recognition as well. We want to give them thanks. Crucially, this last point, absolutely crucial. Said this in September and even more important now. I absolutely believe that we need to reach out to corporates, even if they don't have any ability to give us any money at the moment. Let's keep them as part of our family. Let's give them that relationship, because when prosperity does come back in maybe 1, maybe even 2, 3 years' time, we have a relationship, okay? And it will be that loyalty and that relationship and that understanding from us, the charity, that right now you're not in a position to give us the support you normally would, but you know what? We know you love us. We know you're going to be there for us in the future. We're going to still keep you part of the family. That communication, that ability to retain those relationships, I think is going to be absolutely crucial. Events, you could do, there have been, we're not an events fundraising specialist. There are many events fundraising channels and webinars out there being delivered. I recommend you go and look at those. But the things that we can definitely say is that the stuff we can definitely deliver, the at-home stuff, the virtual stuff will still be a thing, solo, small groups. The mass participation events, no one has any answers. And there's lots of people asking, what do we do? Are we doing this? Are we having those? What are you doing? No one's got an idea of how the public are going to react. We all have, again, think about yourselves. How are you feeling about going into a massive music hall or a concert venue with tens of thousands of other people in, let's say, late June? I got an advert saying, do you want to go and see Aerosmith at the O2 in June, at the end of June, just after lockdown? Do you know what? Bit of fun, Aerosmith, but going to the O2 in June with 30,000 people really, really doesn't appeal to me quite now. So I have no idea how that kind of feeling and how individuals are going to be feeling about mass participation events. I do feel that if they are taking part, I think they've still got to be COVID safe. I think that's got to be the first thing, that when we advertise an event, even though some people aren't going to be worried about that, we have to advertise, we have to make sure that people who are worried about it are catered for. Because if they would come, if they're confident, if they can be confident, let's give them that confidence, okay? I also like the idea, and a couple of our charity clients are doing this, asking eventers now, sign up to something, even if we don't have a firm date yet. It's either going to be then or we might do it in the spring, but sign up. Don't need any money, just sign up on the dotted line. One of our charity partners have a paid run, sponsored run walk event. And there's normally an entry fee, and they normally get about 1,500 people. A challenge event was set up by another organization to happen, basically the same thing happening a month before. And so what they did, they went, right, we'll make ours free. And they decided to we'll take away the registration. Let's just allow people to sign up for free. Instead of 1,500 people signing up, they got 6,000 signed up. And then about 4,500 actually took part. And the overall income with the fundraising was much greater than the amount they'd made previously. So I'm not saying that's a definite thing for everyone, but there's an opportunity there to say, just because we don't have an entry fee doesn't mean we won't make any money from events. The only other thing I will say about events, if we're thinking, maybe September, October is when we get back to events fundraising, do you know what? If we're thinking that, every other charity is thinking that as well. We will not be able to move for runners and cycle rides and color dashes and bubble rushes and all that kind of stuff, and skydive advertising and all that kind of thing. So it's going to be an incredibly competitive market. So again, the big red fundraising button does not work because it's not going back to normal. It's going to be a challenge to get back up to the levels we were at before. And finally, trust fundraising. Andrew and I will talk about it later. Andrew Peel, who leads our trust fundraising, and we're pre-recording a webinar. We're going to release that in April, and we're just looking at the trust world in 2021. But this case of support we talked about, it's absolutely crucial because it defines what we can do here. And there are essentially going to be three streams. There's going to be COVID-19 recovery funding. There are some pots out there that are specifically to help organizations to get back from COVID-19. Brilliant. But there is also this new future, the kind of quasi-capital funding that will be available to allow charities to respond to that situation and go and deliver the new thing that is now needed to meet the new world. That will be money that's available from trust as well. And then there'll be the usual general revenue fundraising. That doesn't stop, but those pots are reduced. And so it's not a case of business as usual. We can't just go through the regular cycle of putting out the local community, community fund, Garfield Western, etc. That usual cycle of trust fundraising does not exist anymore. We've got to be focused and we've got to be thinking about the interests of those trusts. Okay. And that's it. Last word from me. Sorry, I've gone slightly over, only slightly, 35 minutes, not too bad. Supporting a charity is an incredibly positive, hopeful thing. It's an act of belief in the future. And so helping your favorite charity to deliver solutions for a cause you are committed to, that's part of this journey. We're all going to celebrate. It is, you know, the view is that there's going to have the roaring 20s again. I subscribe to that. I think it's quite likely. We've all realized, as one of the nurses said to me right at the height of the first wave, we've all realized what's important, and what's important is together, is friends, is family. It's not the latest smartphone, it's not the new car, it's actually about people. There's hope for the future, because we recognize what's important, and that positivity, that moving forward, is something that we can give people hope. Their engagement with us about helping to create this better future is part of that positive, hopeful step forward into the future. But we've got to describe it like that. We've got to give people the opportunity to be part of that journey. Okay. And finally, this is us. This is us. This is most of our dogs. I think we've got almost all the dogs in there as well this time. We're here to help. We're based in Brighton and now wonderfully in Belfast too. So Ellie Martin, who is waving at you now. There you go. Ellie and we have been working together for many years, and our new office in Belfast is deliberately there to support charities not only in Northern Ireland but also in Scotland Republic as well, because we recognise there's a lack of expert support and knowledge in that specific area, and we want to be able to help there. We are here to help where you don't have the resource in-house. If all this stuff that I've talked about, if you're looking at this and going, yeah, got that, yeah, fine, doing that, tick, yeah, no problem, brilliant, absolutely fantastic, go and be wonderful. If you don't have the resource or the experience and expertise in-house to do this stuff, that's where we can help. So we can support you in the planning. If it's the storytelling that you struggle with, we can come in and we can interview and we can tell stories and we can help create that emotion. If it's the case of support that you're struggling with, defining the need, defining the journey, or planning on how to look at the audience, or even doing that audience split, we can come in and look at the audience, we can give the split, we can do that for you if you need it. So if you need help, help is there for you. My message to you is, however you choose to do this, do it yourself, do it with support, but do it, please. And if there are anyone sitting here who is sat on their own and has been told by their trustees or chief executive, well, let's just wait until the pandemic ends and then we'll go fundraising again, please go back to them with the message that that is not going to work and we have to start the work now and we need to resource that properly. We need to do the work, okay? Because we're here to help you do that, because you've got to rebuild fundraising on the ground. All that events, all that community engagement, all the corporate engagement, that's the stuff that no agency can do for you. You've got to do that on the ground yourself. Those relationship building, that has to be you. We can do the stuff that can be done in the background, the mass market stuff, the planning, the audience identification, but you've got to do the fundraising on the ground. And as I said, next time we're going to be talking about Trust Fundraising 2021. It'll be Andrew and myself. It'll be a pre-record session, and we'll just make that available on the website and YouTube, and we'll email around that it's there, so you can watch that with a cup of tea at your leisure from the 8th of April. That's us, and we're here if you want to speak to us. Thank you for coming today. I hope that's been useful. Sorry, it's a bit of a kind of head download from me and a bit of a rant. But the reason for that is the background to this. There are a number of conversations I've had in the last couple of months where I'm really worried, because literally people just sat there going, okay, we're not going to do anything until June, or we're not going to wait until September, and that is not going to work. Okay, so is there anything? I will stop sharing now. I will ask my lovely colleagues Amy and Ellie to tell me if there is anything that any questions you can ask as we go.
I think you've been so incredibly, and I've been so blown away by your metrics on the stage 4 that I don't see any for you.
Ellie, your audio is going in and out, Ellie.
Oh, we got gremlins.
Yeah, try again.
Yeah, just advising that I think we don't have any questions coming on the chat other than just identifying there's a request for the matrix in stage 4. But other than that, I think you've been so thorough that we're pretty good.
No, Ed, welcome. Yeah, yes, of course, and that will be this will be uploaded to the website. The presentation will be there, and this recording will be there as well. You're welcome to go and grab that, and to have that, and to keep that as well. I think it's about making it right for you, though. Yeah, this is it's never possible to walk into any charity and go, this is what you guys should be doing, or these are your problems and these are the solutions. It's always more complex. It's always more nuanced, but it's about taking those guiding principles. And I think that the one thing, as I said earlier, that at 20%, 80%, it's so important, and it's so often overlooked, that there is a huge amount that you can do by talking to the right people, by focusing on where the money's coming from. And it's that challenge, because the easiest thing almost always is to do the mass marketing thing. You know, it's again, having been a fundraiser since 1993, I know that I can keep myself really, really busy by sending out a raffle, a regular giving, ask and upgrade, 2 donor appeals and 2 newsletters a year. Do you know what? That's me full, and I'm really busy doing that. And I can do my ROI, and I can do my, you know, so this is the percentage increase on last year, etc. And it goes round and round and round. And I can keep myself busy, but actually, that's not where the income is. That should be going on in the background. That should be automated. That should be going in the background while I am spending my time dealing with the key individuals who are going to make the most impact on our giving. Amy, Ellie, anything else we need to deal with?
No. There's a lot of going on, a lot of love for the matrix.
Okay. All right, you have the matrix. There you go. Have that with our blessing. Guys, I hope that was helpful for you. Right, so here's the thing. Go and book a holiday. Go and book
don't, and the caveat is don't do it because Ash said so.
No, tell them I said it was fine. Yeah. So I mean, really, when the local pubs open, it's going to be ridiculous, isn't it? There's going to be bodies on the ground everywhere. There's going to be pavements with comatose people in all parts. I mean, this is Brighton, for God's sake. You know, imagine what Brighton seafront's going to be like in June. It's going to be like VE Day all over again. We are here. If you want to come and talk to us, if there's anything that sparks an interest and you think, actually, I'd like to come have a chat, then please do. There is never an obligation in coming and just talking to us and going, can I just ask your opinion? Or what do you think about this? Or can I just ask some advice? It's absolutely fine. We're here for that. Please come and ask, and don't feel that you're obligated to spend money with us because you're not, okay? We are here to help where there's something you want to do, but you haven't got the resource or the ability to be able to do it in-house. That's why we're here. But we're always here for advice and support, okay? So anything you need, come and give us a shout, okay? Right, finishing now, leave you to it. Thank you ever so much, everyone, for taking part and for being involved. I hope that was helpful to you. Look after yourselves. Fingers crossed. Boris has a plan. We'll get there eventually. Lots of love, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank
Very
you.
welcome. You're very welcome. Take care now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.